Podcast number 8, Mike. Good morning.
Good morning. I cannot believe we're already at number 8. So, 2 months into this, it's crazy.
The Loco Ocho, buddy.
I hear
crazy 8 here today.
Well, it's been good so far,
Sure
and look forward to another good podcast. Again, we've got another special guest with us today. This officer spent 16 and a half years with the Butte Silverbow Police Department, and we'll hear from Sharman Hock here in just a little bit. But let's talk a little bit about this week.
Certainly. How's this week been?
Well, it's been fun. It's been a good week. You know, we had a great turnout at the Butte Vigilante Rodeo last week, and very well attended. And you missed it on Sunday. We put my signs on the Ram pickup truck, and that was bringing in the barrels. So one of the rodeo judges told us it would be fine to do that. So we got that out there on Sunday. It was a big hit with everybody.
Yeah, sorry we missed it. We were there on Friday. Had a great Friday night.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
The VIP lounge was great.
Oh yeah, that was nice. I think we spent most of Saturday, and there was a little bit colder on Saturday night, so we spent some time in there and had a few drinks and met a lot of people. So it was a good time. And well, Sharman was there with us on Saturday night too, so she got to hang out with us for a little bit. And
well, I hear it was Rhonda Staton that decorated the VIP lounge.
She did.
She killed it.
Yeah, it was amazing. You walked in there, and boy, she had it down to a T on what was needed in there. It was impressive.
So, a couple of the regular folks that had attended past rodeos said that this was the largest turnout in 20 years of
when they had the ropes. Yeah, and I think next year it's going to be a lot bigger. Sunday they had the mutton busting, and I could not believe the amount of kids that took part in that. It was neat. It was good to see.
Future rodeo athletes, right there.
Absolutely.
Good deal.
So then we had this week the Wall that Heals came through the Vietnam War Memorial, and I'd been down there. It's a somber event. I mean, it really is. I'm a Vietnam War buff, so I've read every book. I know all the major battles, and to go up there on the wall and see the names of the people that you've read about, and there's a lot of emotion. You see a lot of the vets there that there's a lot of pain that goes back during that war, and you can see it in the eyes of the people that were there.
Have you been to the memorial in DC?
I have been, yes. So I was there, I believe, in around 2002 was the first time I was there. I've been there a couple of times, but that was the first time, and there was a lot of Vietnam vets that were there visiting the wall when I was there, and it was the strange thing is you don't hear anything. I mean, you hear the wind blowing, but there can be hundreds of people there, and there's not a word spoken.
Yeah. DC's worth the tour. We also toured and looked at. There was the World War II memorial. There was a Vietnam memorial. I mean, there was a lot of homage to the sacrifice that men and women have made for this country over the years, and I think it's a very somber but emotional.
Right. I think somebody had mentioned, one of the teachers I think mentioned to me the other day, that it would be good. They wish they could take the kids down there.
Oh yeah.
For a field trip just to the memorial and just have them see, so they recognize and can understand what sacrifices have taken place here.
Oh yeah. No, it's definitely. I'd like to go back. You'd have to spend a week in DC to really absorb. But I mean,
heck, just going to the Smithsonian takes days to go through.
Yeah,
so
it's definitely a longer term commitment. But yeah, that's great. I'm glad something like that was able to become mobile and come here to Butte, so we could enjoy it. So.
Yeah, they had horses there on, I believe it was Tuesday, for the members who died from Anaconda during the Vietnam War.
Okay.
And so they had a horse there for each member of that community that died. It was a pretty moving event that took place there. So
was your father in Vietnam?
My father was not.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
So he was in optometry school, I believe.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's important too. That's for sure. There's a lot of surgeons, doctors, and whatnot that served.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Lots of things happen. My father was in Vietnam. He was a B-52 pilot.
Okay.
and heard a lot of stories.
Oh, I can only imagine.
But only after a few cocktails.
Yeah, that's normally when it happens.
Yep. Because when I think that's just the way they deal with it when they're not having a drink. They don't want to talk about it. They have a drink. It's sit down and it's the intro to Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, you get to hear a lot of stories. Yeah. So this week's been good, and we'll look forward to this podcast today and hearing what Sharman has to say. And later today, the new 800 scanners that you have, the nice ones, and
the good.
I do have one, and it records.
Yep.
All the radio traffic for you, so you can go back and hear things. That happened a week ago, and there was an open mic this week.
Say, it records a lot of things.
Yeah, it records a lot of things you probably don't want recorded, but there was an open mic this week with one of the members of the department having a conversation with the sheriff, and I think it's going to open a lot of eyes. It's not only embarrassing for the sheriff himself on what was said and how he was spoken to during this open mic. You'll hear some F-bombs coming out of there, and it's about the taser training that they had this week, and so several of the tasers didn't fire, cartridges didn't work, batteries were dead, batteries were expired, some 4 years old, had expired 4 years ago, and the training itself was a disaster, and all control's been lost in that department now, and you'll hear it in this open mic that took place, and so yeah, we'll get that out today, and the people can hear it and decide for themselves. What's when I talk about the training and the management of the department is just non-existent now, and there's going to be several episodes that several more things that we have that are going to be coming out in the next couple weeks and month that are going to show that all they're drowning up there, and the department's falling apart, and we get more and more proof of it every week, and we're going to get some more of it today. So
yeah, I think we should expand just a smidge on that too, without giving away the big reveal before we release the audio. It seems like there's a complete lack of respect for the leadership. When you say,
I think that's going to be painfully obvious today, right? when you hear this mic, and
most people have never talked to their superiors that way, or at least in that tone of language exchange. Wouldn't you agree?
I would expect to probably be dismissed or I would be on days off for a while if that were to occur. So
an extended vacation without pay.
Yeah, and it's at the point now. The old the football players or the athletes that we all love that have had a great career, and then they hang on a little bit too long, and everybody's like, retire. Now you're ruining your whole career.
Right. It's painful to watch
your whole legacy that you have going on here, and that's what's taking place.
Right.
And I think after listening to this audio today that he's ruining his legacy, because he would have been well known throughout the city, and he would have, and this it's sad, but it's what's happening, and we're trying to get it out there, let people know that there are major problems here, and to hear how this person talks to the sheriff today is going to open a lot of eyes.
Well, I think his legacy was already a bit tarnished prior to even this. This is just the icing.
Yeah, but it wouldn't have been known. It wouldn't have been out there for the public to know. So
I've talked to a lot of folks in town that we live and work and function with. Some of these folks know him and have known them since they were children. Known Ed Lester since they were children, and their parents, fathers had worked with him, and they all say, and this is a unanimous take on this. Great guy, fun to have a beer with, but he's got to go as sheriff, and that's really a lot of folks have taken that approach.
I've never heard anybody personally say a negative word about him. I mean,
I hear he's a fun guy, but they support his past legacy as he's a neat dude,
Yeah, and I don't.
But they don't. What they say it's
You
they,
don't want to ruin that, but
they don't want him to be sheriff anymore either. In the same
it's
breath.
his choice by hanging on here, and it's only going to get worse.
You can only do something for so long. I mean, 35 years in the business, he's not gonna. The passion's got to wean a little bit, wouldn't you say?
Well, yeah, I think so. And, you know, again, you spend 35 years in law enforcement, that's something to, you know, you can hang your hat on. You can, you know, and I mean, it's something to be proud of.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 35 years. 35 years is a long time. And
It sure is.
it doesn't mean it was all good. And
Even if you bring it in sideways, it's still
it's
something to respect. You've been there 35 years.
right. And it's now we're seeing things that are going on within the department currently. We're talking about things that have happened in the past that the public doesn't know about, and all these things are coming out now because it's the election year and nobody's challenged him on it, but the community seems to say, you know, again, great guy, time's run out, you gotta go. So let's talk to Sharman here. Again, she was 16 and a half years, and I think she's got a lot to say and a lot of input that people probably don't know about things that have gone on at the department. And so with that, I'll hand the mic over to Sharman, and you guys can have a conversation. I get to sit back and listen again for the third week in a row.
Good morning, Sharman.
Good morning.
Is this your first podcast?
It is.
Are you nervous?
A little bit.
Don't be. We're trained professionals.
I can tell.
Yeah, you're in good hands. This is number 8. We're ready to take this, global.
Absolutely.
Actually, it already is global, isn't it, Spotify? Well, we're ready for global listeners to actually listen. So let's talk about your career with the police department here. 16 and a half years. That's a good run.
Yeah.
Tell us about it when you first got started. What was your thoughts on how the police department functioned, and who was the chief or the sheriff rather than, and how was the department different when you started versus when you left?
So when I started, the sheriff was John Walsh.
John Walsh.
At the time.
Not the guy from
No.
what was America's Most Wanted?
Yeah. No, not him.
Different John Walsh.
Yeah. And it was a fun place to work, considering what you do for work.
Right.
It gets stressful, but we all got along for the most part.
And you started as a patrol officer,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
There's a lot of laughing and joking in briefing.
Mm-hmm.
But
Cuts the tension.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly.
and then when Sheriff Lester took over, I mean, the morale was already kind of starting to go down towards the end of Sheriff Walsh's
Okay.
tenure. But it got really bad after Sheriff Lester took over.
How long were you with Sheriff Walsh before Lester took over? How far into your career?
It was probably about 6 years, I think. So I spent like six and a half years on patrol,
Okay.
and then 10 years in detectives.
How was your reception under Walsh at that point? Were you welcomed with open arms?
Yeah. It was
to
good.
To the brother sisterhood,
Mm-hmm.
everything was okay. So you were welcome, and you were an exceptional cadet in the academy, right?
Yes.
Okay. Tell us about that.
Well, I was the first female in the history of the academy to graduate at the top of my class.
Okay. Wow. That's great. Congratulations.
Thank
If our
you.
sound effect board was working, I'd give you a standing O, but it's cold this morning. So, what did that mean for, when you got hired by the department? Were they like that, we're proud to have you, you're a local girl, you were top of the class,
Yeah.
How many women had gotten hired by the Butte Police Department prior to you?
I think there was, at the time I got hired, there was just one other female.
Okay. In the department history?
No,
Okay,
there
there's
had
other
been,
women.
yeah.
Okay.
But, when I got hired, she was the only other female.
Okay.
And then Rhonda came on not long after that.
You and Rhonda weren't in the academy together?
No.
Okay. She was about a year or so after you?
Yeah, approximately.
Okay. Okay. And you, tell us about your you know, your time at the department before you got promoted, because eventually you became a detective for
Mhm.
child abuse or child sex crime, like Rhonda was.
Right. And I also served on the ICAC task force
Okay.
for 4 years.
To explain to the listeners what that is.
That's internet crimes against children.
I'm glad to hear that we had that option. I was actually wondering if that existed still for the department for that investigations, because that's such a huge national crisis with internet porn and child predators looking for children. So it's good. Does the department still have that investigation
I'm
division?
not sure if they do right now. They did. When I left, somebody took it over.
Okay. Well, hopefully they're doing a good job.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
So what did you think about that? Your time in that division, investigating those crimes?
I mean, it's there's things that you just can't unsee.
Right.
That you don't forget. But also, you're doing it for a good reason.
Yeah, you certainly are.
And these, predators need to be stopped.
They do. I mean, did you find that there was a lot of those in the county? A fair amount?
It was eye-opening. Definitely.
Was there a comparison to national statistics with the FBI versus, what's the per capita average of these crimes in mainstream America versus Butte, Silverbow?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Was there not probably a lot of statistics probably listed or posted then?
I'm sure there were. I just didn't see any.
Okay. I figure that, we had talked about this before, that there's a gross deficiency in transparency with the department.
Definitely.
And I would think that, and that's not a reflection to what you and Rhonda and others did as a detective. Your department should give you those statistics and briefings. Okay, here's where we're at. Good job. Here's how many cases that you closed, how many children you rescued, how many bad guys you put in jail. This is the national swing on this. There's just not any statistics kept, or they're kept too well. They're just not transparently shared like they should be.
Right.
And I know that's something that our future sheriff here, Mike, has spoke out a lot about, because those are critical tools that the department needs to share with the public as well, so you can see those are attaboys, And
Definitely.
if you don't know where you're at with it, I mean, we don't need statistics at this point to see that there's a crisis here, but nonetheless, continue. How did you like that particular position? You and Rhonda worked together, and talking about Rhonda Staton, we talked to her husband Todd last podcast, and boy, did he have a lot to share. So, you could tell us a little bit about your work experience with Rhonda and what you two, accomplished.
We did, the sex crimes.
Right.
It's not fun, definitely. We worked closely together. We're also very good friends.
Right.
So we worked a lot together on cases, helped each other.
Go into you feel free. You can talk about some of the things that we talked about on Friday. At your time when the department started going downhill. What were some of the things that you experienced personally that didn't seem right, or the retaliation, things that you saw, that brought you here today, to talk about, what were some of those things that just weren't normal, or what you would expect to be happening during the department?
Well, pertaining to Rhonda, there was a lot of hostility towards her by one of our supervisors. And at first it wasn't there, but when she got divorced, this particular supervisor, I think, asked her on a date, and she turned him down. And I'm sure, she was very kind about it, because that's just how she is. And I think not long after that is when his behavior towards her changed. a lot, and not in a good way.
Would you call it a hostile work environment?
Definitely.
Yep.
Yeah.
What were you telling me that it was kind of funny because I laughed about it, but give me when you guys would have to go to the bathroom.
Oh.
What were you required to do?
It got to the point that anytime we had to go to the restroom, we were told we had to call up to dispatch and let them know.
You were being dispatched to the ladies' room?
Yes.
We're en route to the ladies' room?
Yes. And then after we got done, we had to call and let dispatch know we were done.
And what was the reason behind this, dare I ask?
I'm not even sure.
Is it just a big brother you to make sure you're where you're supposed to be, or was there some weird,
I think it was a control
weirder
thing
than that? I don't even want to.
I think it was just a control thing. Like
who put that? Who mandated that?
The lieutenant at the time.
Is this the gentleman you were speaking about in the beginning?
Yeah.
That created the hostile work environment?
Yes.
So he was playing some type of ultimate mind game.
Yeah.
Basically.
Mm-hmm.
After Rhonda had turned him down initially.
But this was years later.
Yeah.
This was towards the end of my career there.
And that's what it sounded like too, as we talked about that in the podcast, was his retaliatory tactics really took off several years later after her initial rejection.
Mm-hmm.
And was he married?
It continued.
Was he married?
At one point he was, yeah.
That he was single pretty much that whole time then?
Yeah.
It's almost like he kept a flame burning for her for years. That's just all kinds of crazy. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really crazy. Some of the, I mean, he would hear her laugh and he would get up and slam his door
Did
in the division.
Did he relocate his office, or did the department relocate him away from you all because of the tension?
They built him an office on the second floor, just so he was away from everybody else because of the outbursts and the door slamming. And
what were some of his outbursts like? Tell if you could share an example.
He would just get irritated. I mean, mainly he would slam his door anytime he heard her talking, laughing, walking down the hall. Like, it was like he wanted her to know.
If he was listening.
Yeah.
Did he ever do anything else besides slam doors? Did he ever back anybody in the corner?
Throw any objects?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Didn't somebody throw a stapler?
There was a stapler that was mentioned. Todd had mentioned that there was a meeting, and he flipped out and launched a stapler into the wall.
Oh, that's possible. Yeah.
And that's just destruction of county properties.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean the guy obviously had some issues. I mean, at one point when because he was also your superior at one point, right? Your direct superior officer. So at one point when you felt uncomfortable and you wanted to talk to the next superior in line, because you can't go to him if your issues with him, you were following the chain of command, going to the next, not going around him or over him, but going to the next in line to basically address your discrepancies and your grievances.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, walk us through that. How did that process go? Did you have to meet off after hours when you were off outside the station?
Yeah, we actually asked our captain at the time, Rhonda and I did, if we could meet with him outside of the station, kind of in a more neutral environment, because we had concerns about the lieutenant's behavior. Like it got so concerning that we were afraid he was either going to hurt himself or somebody else.
Somebody else, meaning a fellow officer.
Mm-hmm.
So you actually felt like he could snap and physically harm yourself or somebody else?
Yes.
What was the sheriff's take on that? How did the sheriff handle this individual's temper problem, his anger management?
And say, oh, that's just George.
That's just George.
That's what everybody said.
Was he? Do you think the sheriff was intimidated by George?
They're friends.
So it was just getting his back,
I think, yeah.
despite his professional behavior. How was he on the street with dealing with the community? Was George a loose cannon when he pulled somebody over for speeding, and would he control himself? Would he teeter on abuse of power? I mean, what was George like dealing with the public? If he's going to be a bad person with his coworkers, then what's he like with people that he may not have respect for?
Not very good.
And was the sheriff aware of those behaviors and his job performance outside of the police station?
Yeah.
Same deal. It's just George.
Yeah.
How long did George work there?
He had over 20 years, and I want to say close to maybe 25. I'm not sure. He had quite a bit of time.
25 years as a bully.
What made you leave the department after 16 and a half years? You're only 3.5 years away from drawing a retirement. Most people can put up with just about anything to make that 20 years. What made you leave? Or what was the thing that you just said, I'm done, I'm not worried about getting my retirement?
Just the stress of not knowing what was going to happen on a day-to-day basis, like what you were walking into. And I knew there were days when I would be driving into work and I would be crying.
And obviously there's still emotions there after the several years you've been apart from the department. And that's pretty powerful for you to walk away from your retirement if you felt that of a hostile work environment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's when I knew it was time to go.
I'm sorry that you still struggle with that. That had to be profound.
Was there any? I mean, obviously this is painful for you. So, and
Yeah.
I apologize. I didn't know that this was going to happen. But again, we've discussed this as many times. As far as the mental health, that the department provides you, was there any for you when you were there?
No, I sought counseling on my own.
Okay.
Just to help deal with it. You know, and I had some other things going on. I told Michael last night, my ex-husband was diagnosed with lung cancer.
So we'll give her a minute here, and obviously, you know, those of us that have served in this capacity have dealt with the mental health struggles, what's now known as, you know, the post-traumatic stress disorder, and it's common among officers, and I would say that there's no officer, first responder out there that doesn't have some form of this disease, and you know, we've discussed that the human brain's made to have or be able to take 1 to 3 of these events in a lifetime, and sometimes these officers, the stresses that they're dealing with, they're seeing this on a weekly basis, and we forget that not only do they have these stresses at work, there are also outside stresses. So they're still no different than the rest of the general population. They have stresses at home, they have family issues that are going on, and then you just add on top of that the things that they see and do every day at work. And you know, I've been there, I've been put on meds for it, so it's something that you shouldn't have to go outside of your department to get help. And we are going to provide that here for our officers, and because it's something that's important, and it's, you know, the officer burnout rate is so high now, and a lot of it has to do with the stress that comes from the job, and it's too much to take, and if you're not being helped at work, you know, then your turnover rate goes way up as well. So we've got to provide our officers with the mental health counseling that they need, and it's got to be available to them, you know, at all times. And so we'll work on that, and that's going to be something we're going to get some people in place right away to help with people.
Certainly is needed. You know, I think this podcast and what's going on right now with Sharman, and the passion that she has, also the sadness that she has inside, just recanting and remembering her career, you know, that in itself should, you know, be enough for voters to listen to this and realize that there's such a gross inadequacy with this department, and it's not a direct attack on any sheriff particular or whatnot. It's just inadequately managed. These individuals, men or women, sacrifice their physical and mental well-being to wear that badge and to protect our community, and then get the door shut in your face in return. And that's complete BS, and that is not what you say. Some of these officers have been retired for 5 years, 6 years, and they're still struggling with it. They gave that piece of themselves to this community, to this department, and got nothing in return as far as help, or, you know, a shoulder. Or,
we owe it to them.
They're absolutely owed. This is ridiculous, and that needs to be the conscience that you vote on in November, because it has to stop. That's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous, unacceptable. It's shameful, absolutely shameful.
And I don't want to say, you know, we can't just say that the blame's here, because there's lots of departments around there that are so behind the times and are not offering, but we've known this is a problem for well over a decade now. Right. You know, probably close to, well, I would even go back, I'd say it's probably 2 decades now that we've known that mental health is a big part of what's the problems in law enforcement that we're seeing with the suicide rates and things like that go up every year. The fact that you haven't acted on it,
you've had opportunities.
There's been plenty of
tons of cues to do this.
Yeah, we've known this is a problem. Law enforcement's known it's been a problem, and many departments have taken this head on and fixed it, and got the officers the help they need, and don't still look at it as, you know, it's, you know, back when I was there, you don't talk about it, you know, it's just something that's not manly to talk about, you know.
Yeah, in my time it was, you didn't, it's, you know, well, I won't say what was said, but I mean, it was, you know, man up.
Yeah, I mean, and so those days have changed.
Did you tell me that didn't work? It was a bad philosophy?
I thought, you know what, I actually thought it worked for a long time, and I thought I was doing pretty good until the day I realized I wasn't.
Right,
so
don't tell me it didn't work, because I think it's working.
Yeah. So, yeah, and that was kind of a kick in the gut when you're like, man, I'm not okay. You know, this is something's not right here, and you know, and all officers experience it. I mean, you get to the point where you know, you got to sit with your front facing the door in a restaurant, because you got to know everybody that's walking in. You gotta look for threats. I knew it. I'll tell a personal story. Nobody knows this except my doctor. So I got to the point where, you know, you go in and use a public restroom at a gas station or whatever, and you're at the urinal, and you're constantly looking, because your back's turned to everybody that's coming in. You know, if you're at a gas station or whatever, and your back's turned to them, so you're constantly focused on who's walking in the bathroom behind you and who's this. Where I got to the point, if I went to a public bathroom, I couldn't go to the bathroom because I was so concerned more of who's coming up behind me or what's going in, so I'd always have to go into a stall where I would at least be protected. And those things you don't talk about, but they're real life stories of things that go on, and that, you know, your mind becomes this hyperactive. It's always on alert, and you can't change it. You've trained your brain to be like that, and then you can't untrain it. You know, it doesn't work. And
I mean, there's an aspect of that I think is also a survival instinct that you develop.
oh, absolutely.
And I don't necessarily think that after you've made a name and a face for yourself in law enforcement, public service, what have you, in this world we live in, it's probably not at all bad to have adapted to some of those compensation mechanisms of survival. It's kind of like, you know, the fight or flight for, you know, cavemen. You know, it was a way as how you survived, right? So it's probably, I mean, never letting your mind rest is torment, right? I mean, you can't go to the bathroom without like, oh, you know, I gotta find a place I could use the restroom because I can't use the public restroom if somebody's trying to kill me. Sitting with your back to the wall in a restaurant, I mean, that's something I do everywhere I go. It's just, you know, because I want to know. Because we live in a world of active shooters, and we live in a world of unstable issues of mental health that isn't addressed. And so I think some of that is, you know, definitely don't be too hard on yourself. Some of that's good things to have, right? And some of it is you got to be able to turn that off, or you'll burn yourself out. I mean, you got to. Because then if you get that way at home, where I can't sit in front of the window, but I'm in my own living room.
Right.
I got to move the chair over now that's, you know, sad. And what I was speaking about with this shame on this department for allowing this is not just that part of it. It's also shame on this department for not only not allowing, you know, relief for officers that have PTSD, but it's bigger than that. It's shame on them for not for running their officers and their detectives out of the job. Mm-hmm. Where it goes beyond counseling. You have to call dispatch to go to the ladies' room. Yeah, that's harassment tenfold.
And nobody else.
Shame on that's my passion for them wanting change, or for wanting change is when I went on my little rant a minute ago. It's not really so much for not having a pocket counselor pop up out of the desk drawer when you feel sad that day. That would be good too, is to have that. I need to take a day off. I need a mental health day, or I need to go see the department counselor. That is a tool that should be offered. But I mean, it's shame on them for call dispatch when you're going to go to ladies' room, or don't bring a coffee pot here. Carve a pumpkin. Don't carve a pumpkin. You know, that BS that we heard last time.
Or her shoes were too loud.
Her shoes are too loud. Oil your damn shoes. No, and then also following you guys, or following when you guys are working or not working. Why are you in the parking lot doing surveillance on me when I'm off work? That is the shame on the department that I speak of, because they're creating, instead of giving you a place that, hey, we're a team, I'm sacrificing my mind and body for this badge and this community. The team should have a base, a locker room, so to speak. Football players, they go in the locker room at halftime. What do? The coach doesn't tell them how bad they suck, or tell them, you know, let the offensive coordinator know when you're going to go take a leak. They don't do that, right? They go in there and say, all right, here's what we did right, here's what we did wrong, here's what we're going to do better in the second half. You don't have that there. You are under constant scrutiny there. So that's the shame on the department part of not giving you a team environment. Okay, and instead they gave you an alienated environment, one that you still are having. You're still crying about it here all these years later. That's profound. Shame on the department, and this is why people need to vote their conscience and hear this in November. A change has to occur. This is ridiculous. Were you also, if I remember correctly, the first female detective for the police department here? So that's how you treat your first. Your trendsetter, your breakthrough detective that's the first female in the department history, by railroading her, making a hostile work environment, borderline stalking, but we'll use air quotes for surveillance. How about that? And by the way, let me know when you're going to go to the restroom. Yeah. Thanks for playing. Goodbye. Now, let's talk about your resignation. tell us what led to that.
There was one day I went into, and it was just I went into Rhonda's office and I said, don't be surprised one day if I just hand in my resignation.
Okay.
Because I'm getting tired of it. And, you know, she's like, you can't leave me. And I said, I know, but I would feel terrible. But it's just too much stress. And I, you know, had the stuff with my helping take care of my ex-husband when he was sick. You know, there were a couple times when he was in the hospital and we didn't know if he was going to make it out. Mm-hmm. Not one person called to see if everything was okay.
Sheriff didn't call?
Not a word. Mm-hmm. And
never a card or signed by all the officers or administration, nothing?
No.
No visit?
Mm-mm. There was one detective that did, you know, check in. It wasn't Rhonda, it was another one, but that's it. She did check. She checked all the time. But
what do you think that what was their problem with you? Because
I think
when did it change?
I think what it boiled down to was Rhonda and I were such good friends. There was a time in briefing, and this is my opinion. This is where I think it stemmed from for me. Rhonda was talking about one of her cases, I believe. I can't even remember what the conversation was. And George was getting irritated with her. And so I stuck up for her, and I just said, you know, I think what Rhonda is trying to say is da-da-da, you know, whatever it was. And he didn't, you know, like that.
What was his reaction to that?
Oh, he wears his emotions on his face. You can tell when he is pissed. And I that's all it took. All you had to do was look at him.
Okay.
And, you know.
And that was like a turning point then?
Mm-hmm.
From that, I mean, it was not just like maybe a mild paranoia, but that was 100% the game changer.
That's what I think it was. Because I can't think
prior
of
to
anything
that, how did
else.
George and you get along?
You know, we were
prior to that?
We were friends prior to that. I saw how he treated some other, you know, supervisors, and some things he did, and it made me just take a step back and be like, well, if he can do that to them,
You could turn on
what's
anybody.
he gonna, yeah, anybody. And one of them was a good friend of his.
Was it a woman?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Are any of these people still with the department?
No.
Did they retire because of longevity, or they retired because of hostility?
Hostility.
Most of them.
I think, yeah.
They ran them off.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they were trying to naturally select their own boys club? So
Yeah.
that what it kind of felt like.
Felt
to
like it, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So did you leave when there was the mass exodus of senior members of the department?
That happened shortly after I left.
Shortly after you left,
Mhm.
okay.
Is that when your boy was bragging about hiring 90% of the department?
That's when it all started, yeah.
That allowed that
So,
celebrating mediocrity. It was
yeah. Not that I ran off 90%, that I've hired 90%.
Is that like when Washington State or Seattle legalized drugs and then said they don't have a drug problem?
Yeah.
Are you still in contact with any current officers, or have you kind of left that behind you?
Mm-mm.
You've left it
Yeah.
behind you. Okay.
Do you ever run into any of them in a small town?
Yeah.
How do they acknowledge you, or
Some
ghost
do,
you?
some don't.
You seen George?
I have actually run into him a couple of times.
Does he still live in the area?
Yeah.
He doesn't stalk anybody anymore?
I don't know.
Curious George, always watching.
This wasn't. I'm just asked because I've never heard the name before, so I don't know this. Did he move up in the ranks?
He got promoted twice.
George did?
So what was his final role?
Captain.
Captain. Okay.
So
So it's a different George than what was the undersheriff.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay. This is not the same George. Yeah. So he was there like George, Curious George. He was there 20 plus years, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And you know, and he retired longevity. He wasn't asked to leave or fired or.
Not that I know.
Okay. So he was, all of his bad behaviors were clearly rewarded.
Is there still, are some of the guys that you worked with, are they still there in the department?
Mm-hmm.
So are they part of what you would have called the good old boys club still, or
Some of them.
some of them? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Dan was probably not in the good old boys club.
No.
So okay, yeah.
No, I would say he definitely was exiled out of that one. He never got a membership card. I mean, the poor guy, if you listen to that podcast, you know, he had sinus surgery. He went to a union Christmas party.
And got in trouble for
and
that.
got in trouble for that.
Oh, I did hear that. Yeah.
Because he was on leave, paid leave,
Mm-hmm.
that he amassed on his own that he was allowed to take.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, I mean, they just nitpick the living hell out of anybody they don't like.
It depends on who you
I
are.
mean, they learned. It's kind of like, you remember junior high? You know, there was always a D-bag here and there that you didn't get along with, and then they were like, it's kind of like you know, junior high, decades later in a professional environment that doesn't require it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So let's talk about your resignation. Did you resign prior to Rhonda or after Rhonda?
Prior.
Okay.
Prior to probably about 2 years.
And that was
I
just
think
like
she was done in 2019.
personal stress with your family member that was dealing with an illness. You had, you know, a lot to deal with, and then you were upset thinking about going to work. You didn't want to go anymore. It was you know, kind of a double-edged sword between child sex crimes, which I would imagine, and there was, I think we talked about that with Todd too. There's a shelf life on that assignment, and you exceeded it.
I went beyond that, yeah.
And that's not the best for your mental state,
No.
emotions. Dealing with a sick family member, that definitely is a 1-2 punch there.
How long were you in investigations?
10 years.
That's
Yeah.
How long were you in child sex crime investigation? All 10?
No, because I did narcotics when I first started back there. And then, you know, we did, I think there was property crimes, but ultimately we ended up in the sex crimes. And then when, you know, when my ex-husband got sick, you know, they knew what was going on. They knew what I was dealing with. Rhonda and I had the 2 heaviest caseloads in the department, you know, and there were numerous times we went to our supervisors to let them know how overwhelming our caseloads were, and we couldn't keep up, and we were told just do what you can, and then, you know,
Did they offer any assistance or give you
it would turn around and we'd get in trouble for not keeping up. So I just felt like we were set up to fail.
Sounds like it.
How many cases were you getting assigned a year? You know, there's a reason I'm asking, because were all your cases sex crimes, or no? Okay, so how many sex crimes cases a year were you getting assigned, do you think?
Oh gosh, I never counted like the specific.
Were there more than 50, less than 50 a year?
Oh, probably more than 50.
And that's, you're getting more than 50 and Rhonda's getting more than 50. Roughly, that's a safe estimate, you think?
Mm-hmm.
I would say probably the caseload's much more now. There's probably a lot more of those type cases.
Yeah, there's nobody managing those folks that
we're not seeing. I don't see.
Crazy.
You know, those cases normally make the news. You know, those. So I'm not seeing. Were you guys clearing a bunch of them, or did most of them stay open? I know they're sometimes really hard to get to get closed, because you're. A lot of times it's a young kid, and a lot of times you almost have to get a confession
right
to get enough evidence on it. So you know it's happening, and you know it did happen. you just can't close the
Can't
case
prove
because you
Yeah.
can't prove it. Everybody knows it happened. It's just proving it for the county attorney to sign off on that. They'll file charges is a whole nother thing.
Right.
And so that's stressful enough. But I just wondered, you know, that amount of cases has probably doubled now since you left because it's so more prevalent and the internet's so much more prevalent now. You'd probably need 2 or 3 officers working, and I don't think there's any female detectives. And
Yeah,
even
I
back
think
in the
so.
90s, I think, when I was a detective, nobody wants to work sex crimes. And the best officers to do it are females. And just a lot of that, the kids, it's more of a mom to them than
there's a nurturing
right,
mentality there
and they just do better talking to kids. That's
Absolutely.
a fact. And it's hard for men to go do that too. I mean, you're trying to put on the soft side. It's not as natural it is for a female officer, especially one that's a mother, to go in and talk to these kids and get that information out.
Certainly.
So I was just when you resigned, did you wake up one morning and say I'm doing it, or how long did you did?
It just was just like, you know what, I'm done today.
Okay, and so you
And
write
it
up the
wasn't
letter.
anything like that happened that day. I just made up my mind. I wrote up the letter, brought it up to the sheriff, and he wasn't surprised. Didn't act surprised anyway.
Did he ask why? Did he say,
No.
is there anything we can do to? I mean, you're
Mm-mm.
3.5 years away from retiring.
Nope.
He didn't offer any type of stay, reassign,
Mm-mm.
take a cruise, nothing.
Nothing.
Was he happy you were leaving in your mind?
Well, I'm sure he was. I
Okay.
don't know.
Okay.
You know, I would have expected more.
So was it your leaving, and then when you had the mass exodus of all your senior officers, was that partly because when you left, did that kind of open the doors, or was it after Rhonda's case that they just said we're done?
I'm not really sure.
Okay.
I think because I don't know. I mean, and they lost people that were awesome at their job.
Do you think that's why they wanted to lose those folks, so they could control the narrative by bringing in people that will shut up and do what
I
they're
don't
told?
know. I really,
It almost
was
seems like there
bizarre.
was a genocidal extermination, so to speak, of good law enforcement officers
Mhm.
there, just to flip the script to bring in puppets. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's all open for interpretation, right?
Yeah, it is.
It's all speculation at this point. It's just so Dan Murphy,
Mm-hmm.
great guy, great personality, gives a lot back to the community, a lot back with his wife and their works with Native American issues and women. Goes above and beyond out of pocket for domestic violence awareness.
Yeah.
Many accolades, years of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Prominent elected officials in the Capitol here in Montana select him for things. So he's very obviously legit.
Very, very involved.
Railroaded,
Mhm.
pushed out, completely harassed, and alienated. Couldn't get promoted if he,
Mm-hmm.
if he tried. I mean, and he has. Same thing for yourself. Same thing for Rhonda. Same thing for countless others that do the extra mile, that go the extra mile, that actually have like this great sense of community. Pushed out. The big question is why? Why would you not reward these officers' behaviors for going above and beyond? Most other places, they get
Mm-hmm.
a handshake with the mayor, or in this case, the chief executive, and they get their photo in the newspaper and,
Yeah.
a check or a gold watch or an attaboy or a plaque or something. And but here you get railroaded out of your job
Mm-hmm.
or put in the corner at the courthouse until you quietly retire, right? And that's not how you treat your above and beyonds.
So I know we're almost done with today's show. Do you know we're at 57 minutes already?
That went by fast.
Yeah. So I do have one more thing that I wanted to wanted to talk about today. This goes into the jail overcrowding issue,
Okay.
and so there is a person on trial for molesting grandchildren, I believe, they made a motion earlier this week to dismiss the case over cruel and unusual punishment. So the violation of the 8th Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment for his stay in the jail and not having toothpaste, toilet paper, being in an 8-man cell with like 24 people and all that. So his attorney made the motion. It hasn't been ruled upon yet, but that was one of the motions to dismiss, was for cruel and unusual punishment about what's going on in the jail. And we know that there's obviously several lawsuits getting ready to be filed for that. And I can't imagine that the judge would grant that, but it is now being brought up and admitted into trials of what's going on over there at the jail.
So it could potentially be used
Yes,
as a reduction.
Yes,
of penalty.
if the judge should rule that there's a violation,
It'll be a landmark.
well, then everybody that's sitting
Everybody
over in
else.
that jail is filing the same thing, and precedence has been set. So we keep talking about the problems in the jail. You've seen newspaper articles about it. Still, nothing's being done. They've got their head buried in the sand, and now it's being admitted into the courts, and so into these cases of what's going on over there. So stand by, and we'll see how this ruling goes. I just can't fathom that a judge would rule that was the case, but it is. But you never know, and if that is cruel and unusual punishment, well, I guess that's one way to empty out the jail real quick, because everybody will. Once that precedent's been set, everybody's gonna be filing the same thing. So
if they filed against this guy, they obviously have sufficient evidence that he did indeed sexually abuse his grandchildren.
that's how I understood.
Right.
So,
So let's just say, obviously, if it made it this far, there's some merit there, right? I mean, so you didn't have toothpaste and toilet paper. That's not fair to anybody, right? I mean, you take them and you incarcerate them until their trial or until their time is served. Then it's our responsibility to make sure they have adequate toiletries.
Well, and
hygiene.
they don't have air conditioning in the jail, and you
most
know how hot
most places in Montana didn't have air until recently.
But I think they're starting to get it, and who knows? I mean, that may be a cost issue as well. I mean, I can't imagine you want to air condition that jail, you're going to get and I can't. People have asked me, would you add on? Let's put a 3rd floor on there. The jail was meant to be added on to. One of the issues right now, I think, that's probably preventing that is, how are you going to staff it? If you do, put it in there, you're at 50% of where you need to be. You're double the inmates and 50% of the staff of where you're supposed to be. So that's a problem. The morale there, again, that's the biggest problem with the staffing is morale. And again, we can go back to this. If we're all detention officers and we love our job, and we're out there talking about how much we love our job and the support we get from the administration, things like that, then people are thinking, well, that might not be a bad place to work. Maybe I'll apply there. And if you're out there telling your friends and family and how bad it is there and how much you hate your job, and then people aren't thinking, well, that's a place I want to go work. So that's causing a staffing issue. And then if you add the 3rd floor on there, the way things are going with prosecuting cases, you'd fill that up in a week.
Of course.
I mean,
if you're something warrants now.
if you start arresting all those warrants, you put in another 100 some beds. Well, you've got that filled up in a week. So
and all the judges that are going to hear those are going to be upset. Because their docket's going to be filled from here to Groundhog Day.
Yeah, and it's going to be too full for them to do their jobs as well. So really, the only option they have right now is house arrest and monitoring. I mean, you got to get those people that you know, are there on lesser crimes that are sitting there doing their 2 weeks for traffic violations or suspend, you know, put them on house arrest, make them go get a job, have them on ankle monitoring, you know, have them be productive members of society. You know, if they're nonviolent people, there's enough violent people walking the streets of Butte right now that need to be in jail, but
Thank
we
God
let
we have
them
those traffic offenders locked
we
up.
let them go, even though they have no bond warrants. We let them go because we don't have room for them, because we've got, you know, and obviously there's problems with the state, you know, being overcrowded too, and they're working on their issues. So it is a big problem, but you gotta start at the local level and figure out what do we have to do here before we get sued, you know, to stop all the lawsuits that I mean, you can't stop the ones that are getting ready to happen now, but you can start preventing future ones by getting these people out of there. And until you have proper staffing, you need to go to the courts, you need to go to the prosecutor and say, we cannot do this. You know, we have to let these people, these minor offenses out of here until we've got proper staffing. Otherwise, we're going to get sued, we're going to get inmates hurt, we're going to get officers hurt, and, you know, then we're just looking at more lawsuits. So all these problems are just compounding at the jail, and until somebody just makes a decision, this is what we're going to do, and says this is how we're going to do it, you know, we're not getting anywhere and nothing's being done.
You know, it's well said, and that's just all stems from poor choices and weak leadership. If you let the genie out of the bottle, it's really hard to get her back in the bottle, and the genie's been out of this bottle a long time, and it's just, where do you start?
Yeah,
you just said yourself, jail's full. We got all these active warrants, no bond, dangerous people. They need to be in jail. But we could literally fill the court. We could literally pack that courtroom with cases after these warrants are executed. So much to the effect you need a remote courtroom.
I don't
pitch
know.
a tent in the field.
Well, and maybe that's, you know, they're going to have to do something.
But how do you mitigate that? And then the jail is a disaster. Nobody wants to work there because morale is so bad. That's already a tough job in law enforcement, anyways.
The toughest.
Okay,
yeah.
Absolutely. A special character that wants to do that, right? But it's a stepping stone, because, you know, you could transition to other aspects of the department then, right? So it's not for nothing. It's an important job, but where do you start? I mean, the whole thing's a spot fire. It's just everywhere. It's like, where do you start putting them out? I mean, this one, the lawsuits, I mean, you're going to inherit that nightmare. Not your fault, not your leadership, but you're going to have to inherit that. I'm very confident that you will be elected, and I'll say that publicly right now. I'm very confident that people, our neighbors, our friends, our co-workers here in Butte want change, and I think that change will be heard loud and clear on November 5th. And then there's going to be a lot of work to do. There's going to be rolled up that night. You're going to be proud of accepting that nod, and then the next day it's, you know, the work's going to start.
That's when reality sets in and you realize, you know, this is
the work's going to start.
And I know, I mean, I see it. You know, I've had talks with many people, and, you know, they're like, you do realize, you know, what a mess you're stepping into. And
the sleeves are going to get rolled up.
How you're going to find a lot of things you don't want to find, and there's more to it than what you're seeing. And these are some prominent people in the community that are like, are you sure you want to do this? Because you're going to uncover a lot of things that you probably are not expecting. And so
100%.
And so the lawsuits will just be another they're going to happen, and we'll deal with them. And, you know, and the bad thing is they're valid. I mean, what do you do when
you can't walk that back?
I mean, they're
100%.
You gotta take it on. You gotta take it on and deal with it, because we know they're valid. You know, there's plenty of stories out there, and, you know, what's going on up there in the jail, and so, you know, unfortunately it is what it is, and you're gonna have to get through that. But in the meantime, you gotta start somewhere and say, okay, we know we've got these suits now. What do we do to prevent the future onslaught of the lawsuits? So let's start right now and start cleaning this area up, so we can minimize the problems that we're going to have in the future.
You know, it certainly, and there's a lot of healing to do with the community in the sense of trusting that law enforcement's going to follow through, and being transparent, not walking back what happened in these lawsuits. They have zero to do with you, nothing to do with Mike Gage whatsoever. You're inheriting that deficit, kind of like an incoming president that inherits a deficit, and you have to figure out how to make that better, make it right. There's a lot of people in the community that crimes are committed against, whether it's property crimes or domestic violence or whatnot. They don't call the police.
No.
There's that healing aspect that when you're there, you're extending that olive branch saying, call me, call us. We're here to protect you and make it right.
Right. And I want to go back a little bit so people understand. You said you were in investigations for 10 years.
Yes.
So I have a different feeling on that than I think that's too long to be in investigations. I don't think investigations should be where you go and where you retire from. To me, you go from patrol to investigations, and then you learn the skills that the investigators need, and then you go back to patrol as a supervisor. And so that would be kind of how I look at things, because then you're a sergeant, you're overseeing your patrol, yet you know what the detectives are going to need to when they get the case.
Yep.
So you can make sure that those cases are done correctly on the initial call, because you as a former detective know exactly what the detectives are going to need, so to pursue that case. So I think the times of going into investigations and then retiring from investigations are going to come to an end, and you know that you need to go back and go back to patrol and be a supervisor. I mean, and there's always going to be instances where some people are just that good at it and they love that job and they'll stay there forever, and that's fine. But for the most part, you should go into investigations, do 3 to 5 years there, and then go back and take that knowledge back to the patrol force and move up the ranks that way.
It sounds like a healthy way of refreshing the individual.
Well, and it does, because then you get burnt out. I mean, investigations, you can get burnt out really, really quick, and just like she's telling us, it's you stay there too long, and this is the burnout that you get. So you kind of gotta keep that rolling along throughout the department, and see new things and have new responsibilities, and it takes everybody. It's a team, and you got to have a team attitude, team mentality. And again, I'll go back to this. She even mentioned it. It was fun to go to work. When she first started, and there was joking, there was laughing. You gotta be able to do that, because the job's just way too stressful. And if you're crying on your way to work,
there's a problem.
That's a problem.
Yep.
And it should never be like that.
What a turnaround that is too. That you go from being excited to go to work to dreading it and crying.
It's like a big slap in the face.
Oh, that's a hell of a 180, that's for sure. But first responders, firemen, police, whatever, paramedic, EMTs, they all have a stressful job, and they all need to have that environment to which you can laugh through the pain a little bit. And that's not laughing at the pain. It's just find a way to laugh through. That breaks up that dark heaviness when you can laugh and have camaraderie with your teammates. And when that's taken away, what do you have?
Yeah.
What do you have left? It's
you always remember that I think the term for it's gallus humor,
right?
And you do you hear things, people say things on scenes, that's a stress reliever. That's trying to. They're not laughing at the situation. They're laughing to try to deal with the situation.
Compensation. Yeah, absolutely.
And you got to bring in. You got to have the mental health piece there to help with those situations, and we're gonna do it, and we're gonna turn it around, and we're gonna turn the lives around of the officers, and if you eventually that rolls down to their family life as well. If you're taking care of them at work, because the family problems that a lot of these officers have is 100% due to their job, and they take a lot of that home with them,
Of course.
and it makes it really, really difficult to have a normal family life, and that starts at work, and you got to take care of them at work, and that'll prevent a lot of the problems, you know, the officers being arrested for domestic violences and those things that happen here. You don't hear about them, and they're suddenly just gone from the department, but they do occur, and it's not a Butte thing, it's a nationwide thing. But there are things that you can do to help prevent some of those, and again, it all starts at work, and you got to have the proper programs in place for them to be healthy at work if you want them to be healthy at home.
Certainly. Well said. And I'm sure you're going to provide just that and then some.
Absolutely.
So looking forward to seeing you win on election day, and looking forward to seeing what you're going to do for all of us here in the community, making it a better, safer place. So, and you know, Sharman, thank you for sharing. Thank you for you know, being here today. I think everybody could hear, you know, your story, your passion for the job that you kept for 17 years, your pain, you know, when you had your moment here, and we thank you for sharing all of it. And you know, we appreciate your support for this guy sitting next to you, and the future of the department and the future of the community. Mike, that was an hour and 12 minutes in, buddy.
All right. Well,
we're keeping track.
Right
with
on
that.
track.
Yeah. You got anything to add for the coming next week?
No, it's
this
gonna be.
weekend?
I'm gonna head back down to the wall this weekend, and
Where's the wall going to be this weekend?
it's at the same place,
Same
Father
place,
Shaken
okay.
Park. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's set up there, so
We'll pop out there and
yeah, definitely
Get a
go
chance to
take a
see it.
look and remember the people that gave their lives for us, and yeah, we've got some other events coming up, and it's time to hit the road. September, we got 2 months left, so
it's time to turn on the afterburners, Bubba.
yeah, we've got a lot of things coming, so
Sure do.
yeah, a lot of things coming up, so it'll be exciting. So yeah, we'll post this out today, and then stand by for the audio recording that
Yep.
on the open mic. So
we got an open mic release very soon. That'll be good.
yeah, I'm sure that'll get shared many times.
Well, it's going to get attention
Yeah.
for sure. Hey, you know what? In life, you get what you deserve, and it may take time, but it always happens. And I think that you know, after 35 years, I think he deserves to spend time with his family and retire, and you deserve to clean up and improve life here.
Right.
And you know, it's all about who wants it more, and I know I can attest that this guy here 100% wants it more, and deserves it.
Absolutely.
And deserves it. So, all right, well, we're gonna sign off here on episode 8. Next week will be 9.
All right.
What are we gonna do for the 10th one? Do you wanna
I don't know.
get a pony and a clown in here?
We'll
and
do
juggle,
something
or
fun.
you wanna do some adult mutton busting?
Yeah. Oh, good Lord, no.
We don't have to fall very far off the sheet.
Still,
You know, it's easier.
it doesn't
for
take much for
no broken hips
to
or.
hurt me. So
We'll have to figure out something for the 10th episode.
we'll do something fun. We'll get somebody on here or
You want to see
something.
if Sheriff Lester will be a guest for the 10th episode?
Well, we can always ask. You may. You never know.
That would be great. And all right, well, we'll continue to plan our 10th festivities. You all have a great weekend. Be safe.
Be safe. Yeah. Have a great Labor Day weekend.
And it's right, Labor Day long
Yep.
weekend. Enjoy it. Barbecue something.
Absolutely. Yeah. Enjoy it, and we'll see you back here next Friday.
Yes, sir, we will. All right, y'all take care.
Bye-bye.